Welcome to Growth Architects, a podcast for tech entrepreneurs, product innovators, and marketing strategists. Whether you're searching for product market fit, exploring new growth channels, or trying to avoid common startup pitfall, this is where you'll find proven strategies to fuel your success. And now, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Growth Architects. Have you ever wondered how can you use AI to make your internal processes more efficient and add a zero to your revenue? Well, that's exactly what Stacey Hylen helps doing. My guest today is Stacey. She's been working together with Tony Robbins, and together with her today, we're going to discuss how you can use AI in order to leverage internal processes and become more efficient. Stacey, I'm very happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Federico. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, same. Absolutely. Well, first of all, great that we could make it work in terms of time zone, because obviously you're based in a different time zone. For the ones who don't know you, would you like to tell us more who you are, where you're from, and what's your experience?
Sure. I am a business coach and growth strategist specializing in marketing and sales. And I've recently, for the last 2.5 years, dug into AI. So, like you mentioned in the intro, and I've become a certified AI consultant. But in my free time, I love to go paddleboarding. I love to spend as much time as I can on the lake and enjoy the sunsets. And I have 3 daughters, so they keep me on my toes.
Nice. And I think it's very important that you mentioned that because everything that you do revolves really around giving back time to entrepreneurs so that they have more time to, well, really enjoy the things that they like. And kind
Yeah,
of
of course.
get control over their life. So you mentioned that you're now really big on AI. What are the things that trigger you to kind of join this new revolution that has started?
Well, I started working with a coach that I don't know if you've heard of Perry Belcher, who was partners with Ryan Dice in growth hacking, which is one of the largest, entrepreneur conferences. And so about 2.5 years ago, I started attending. Well, actually, it was before that. I started attending some of his online seminars because after COVID, and he started mentioning AI and he started showing us a few things that it could do. I was like, wow. I've always, since I started my own business, I've always really thrown myself into coaching and training and getting in front of the biggest experts there are so that I can bring that to my business, but also to my clients' businesses. So the more things that came across with AI, I said, okay, I want to learn this. I actually went and got certified because I said, I think instead of just learning from YouTube and you're learning a tip there and a tip there, it's better to just kind of throw yourself in and learn from people that have a process to do it.
Okay, Stacey. Yeah.
All right, good. I lost you there. I didn't know if
Yeah, well, it never happened to me. Actually, Riverside crashed. That's the first time that it happened. Well, what we recorded so far hasn't been lost, so you can just go on and keep telling me about your experience.
Yeah. So I wanted to, instead of just going to YouTube and learning randomly, I really wanted to take this seriously and learn a system and a process of how to do it instead of just random tips here and there. And that's then what I've done is looked at, okay, how can I then take this AI stuff I've learned and then incorporate it for my clients so that then they can use it in a way that helps them increase their revenue and actually have more freedom in their business. So it's been a lot of fun because people have been able to do things that before would have taken them a week that they're able to now do in 15 minutes. So it's really been amazing.
Got it. Because the new thing is obviously AI, but on the other side, you're doing the same things that you have been doing for many, many years, which is advising entrepreneurs, coaching them, and how they can become more efficient. So, from that point of view, I'm curious, like, what's typically the kind of entrepreneur that you help?
They're usually people that are already very successful. They've been in business for quite a few years. They have a team of employees and they're really an expert at what they do. I say they're in their expert era, that they're really good at what they're doing, but they haven't necessarily translated that into marketing themselves or having strategic positioning. Like they've really kind of gotten where they've gotten by working hard. And so we come in there and help them position themselves better, help them do their marketing better, incorporate the AI, which really helps.
Yeah, you mentioned something, working hard. I guess sometimes the idea of becoming more efficient and having to work less almost feels like a guilt, right? For for entrepreneurs, where you sometimes think that results only come if you put more hours into it and you more grind. Is it correctly?
Yeah,
Is it something you
it's
recognize?
It's so funny because I just saw a meme on Instagram yesterday, and it was like, when you go on vacation with entrepreneurs or business owners, and it was like everybody sitting around a table outside at the pool with their laptops working. And it was like, oh, that's so sad because they really didn't have that vacation or break that they needed. It's funny because I worked with Chet Holmes, who is partners with Tony Robbins, and he used to say, you can double your business only growing, half the time. And he would joke and say, well, which 12 hours do you want to work per day?
True. And well, so why don't we dive a little bit deeper into, yeah, again, how you help the entrepreneurs that you're helping with, that you're working with. What are common patterns that you see, and what are some of the ways in which they can start leveraging AIs today in order to become more efficient?
Yeah. So one of the things that I see is that people are just like, when I first started mentioning AI to my clients, it was really like, I was like, do you want to learn AI? Do you want to learn this stuff that I'm teaching? I had asked my people in my mastermind as well. And they said, "Oh, yeah," but they were very reticent to move forward with it. They were scared of it. They were nervous. And then once they started using it, the mistake that I see even now is people use it like Google, and they just ask it stuff like, what about this? What about that? And they don't really have a strategy for how they can use AI in their business to actually help them. So one of the other things the other big mistakes I see is they'll say, do better, make it sound more like me. Like they'll just kind of, they'll get a output from AI, and they'll just kind of, like, they'll coach that output versus really being strategic before you use the AI, so that every output you get from the very first output is better and you have much less to tweak.
And why would you say it's a mistake to use AI like Google?
Well, it's I think they get in the habit of that, right? And using it just like to do that. I think there's certainly AI that I think is even better than Google. So Perplexity is,
Oh,
I
nice.
absolutely love Perplexity.
Absolutely.
And do you like it too?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's replaced Google for me.
Yeah, and
Because
so
I
that
look for
that's a
sources there.
that's a good example of it, right? But I think ChatGPT and some of the others don't have the resources like Perplexity to actually do the research and get the good stuff. For those of the listeners or watchers that don't know Perplexity, it's like a search engine, but it doesn't give you all the ads up top like Google does. And it doesn't just say, for example, you're searching for places to go on vacation. Like, so you're like, I want to go to Croatia. And so you're going to get all these websites about Croatia. And instead, with Perplexity, it would actually tell you the thing that you wanted to learn about, like the best times to go to Croatia, instead of just a website about it. So you actually get the research, and it's all broken down with the sources of all the places that it found the information. So you can go deeper. And then at the bottom, it has other questions that you might not even have thought of about your trip to Croatia or the company you're researching for your sales outreach. So I love that about
Yeah.
it.
But so you mentioned part of it, which is, say, using AI as kind of a source of truth. But obviously, there is also, when you talk about efficiency, there is also a lot about using AI in order to help you run certain processes. Is it also something that you offer as part of the, say, the service that that you deliver to entrepreneurs?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we do is, first we do a strategic consulting session, easy to say early in the morning. And we look at the places where they have areas for growth in their business, and we look at areas that they're stuck in their business and say, okay, well, what can we do to solve this? One of the big things that people start with is they haven't trained their AI. So we usually start with that. Now, we might need to back up a step because we might need to help them I might need to help them with their strategic positioning to make them stand out in their marketplace before we even train the AI. But once you have that strategic positioning in place, then when you go and you train your AI, It starts to sound more like you. It knows what your company's good at. It knows who your company's perfect clients are. And so that's what we're doing on the back end. So before you go and prompt it with something, it already has all that information in the back end that it's pulling from when you talk to it.
Got it. And so, what are some of the main tasks for which you use AI? What are some of the, say, most recurring things that you see or like quickest gains?
Yeah, so I think one of the quickest gains is well, there's two, I think, with the clients that I work with, is in their marketing. So we're bringing their marketing materials that, in the last 20 years, I've been doing this almost 25 years. Like, it would take us ages to, do a brochure, to do, you know, the marketing piece. And so now we take the prior marketing pieces we had and we put that in AI and we customize it for the prospect. Right. So instead of it being very generic, we're able to then, like, say, for example, you're in a certain industry, you can customize it for that industry, that prospect you're going after, as opposed to having a very general brochure, for every prospect that you're going after. So my clients absolutely love that because they're getting a lot more interest because it's really talking to the prospect at a deeper level than just like a generic company brochure. The second thing that my clients have had a lot of really good success with is using it in your follow-up process. So one of the things that people are not doing, even if they're using AI, is they're not setting up projects within ChatGPT. So what we want to do is you want to set up projects. So each prospect you set up as a project in your ChatGPT. And that way you're able to, first of all, do the research. Now you can do some of the research in ChatGPT or Perplexity, like I mentioned, and you're going to create a file for this person. Now I use Google, so I put everything in my Google Drive and I would, create a document for that prospect of everything you found out. Like, this is their product line. This is their head office. This is the guy that I'm going after in their LinkedIn profile. And so then you can put that into your folder in ChatGPT and it knows who you're talking to, right? Then you put in, okay, what are the things that you need to know about my company? So they have those two things married together. And then the really fun thing is to actually talk to ChatGPT. So say, for example, you talk to Bob from XYZ company and Bob, this is my little secret trick here. Have you seen these before?
No, what's that?
This is the secret trick. This is what's called a Plaud recorder. It's PLAUD. And I don't have my phone here because I put it out of the room for the recording, but you can pop it right. It's a magnet. So you can pop it right on the back of your phone and it will record your phone calls and it gives you notes from your phone calls. So when you're doing a phone call, a prospecting call that you have a prospect on the line, if you have this on your phone, it's going to make it so easy to be able to make follow-up emails, proposals, really talk in the language that the person is saying. So for example, if the person says, well, we really need to pinpoint the problem, then in your proposal, you're like, we really need to pinpoint the problem. Or if somebody says, we need to get to the bottom of this, then you would use that kind of language. From my, working with Tony, that reflecting the language back to the people that you're working with really makes people feel heard and listened to. Now, the other thing that this Plaud recorder does that's amazing, that my clients have had amazing results. One of my clients in Texas, I go and I train his employees on site, and usually in January. So this year I brought one of these, I threw it on the table, and it recorded our whole meeting, all the sales training, all the marketing stuff, all of the language. Now, remember at the beginning I said my clients are experts. So he's an expert at how he says things to prospects, but to try to get that same language across to the sales team is really hard. So we were able to capture the language that he used and get it all put so that his salespeople can access it. Now, the funny thing is that he bought this off of me before I even left. And when I brought this to my mastermind meeting, everybody ordered it before I could even give them a link. It was that popular. So this is like a secret weapon. The other thing that's really great about this is then you can take this data that you're getting from this, the raw data, and then build a custom GPT with it. Right. So now we have the data from the expert, the business owner, the best salesperson on your team, your marketing person that knows exactly how to phrase things. And then you can put it into a custom GPT that then you use with your prospects to build the follow-up stuff that you're doing.
I heard you saying creating projects within ChatGPT and so on. So I guess you definitely recommend your clients to use the premium version of it. What's the difference that you see between the free version of ChatGPT and the premium version?
Well, I really think if you're a professional, like the $20 US dollars per month, like that's like a bare minimum. I mean, most of my clients have $1 million businesses, so some of them have invested in the team version because they have multiple employees. But I think the free version, it's timing out all of the time, you're getting limits. And I heard since ChatGPT 5 was released that people are getting these limits like even faster now. And they're getting not as good of an output as they got before ChatGPT 5. And then it's saying, oh, if you want more, upgrade. If you want more, upgrade. So I really think, take it seriously, spend the $20, or if you have a team, get the team version so that you can have everybody using it.
Got it. Got it. No, yeah, absolutely. There's a huge difference, and indeed, you can see that every AI company is actually trying to offer you a bit less and less and less, and a worse customer experience. So, because they need to monetize it somehow, right? So
Yes.
there's a huge amount of people that are now using it for free. So obviously, something will change in the next months or years. I guess.
Yeah, for sure. But they still have a lot of growth in front of them just with the $20.
Well, I really like what you said before about automation. So you talked about marketing, you talked about sales, you also talked about how you can leverage AI and also like your own content, so to say, to create training for people that work together with you, right? In order to make that training part more efficient. Another thing that I'm curious, because you talked about processes next to AI and ChatGPT, for example, what are other tools that you're using and how do you create the process around these tools?
Yeah, so I'm also using, like I said, ChatGPT, Perplexity. I'm using Claude a bit. I find Claude is a good writer, so I'll try to use my ChatGPT is trained better because I have all the custom GPTs that I've developed for my processes. So my add a zero without hustle system, I've actually trained my ChatGPT on that. So then if I want a little fancier writing, then I can pop it into Claude. But then I'm also using Go High Level. So if you've heard of that, it has the CRM involved in it. It has the automation. So you can send text, you can do chat bots, you can do voice bots. There's so many things that you can do with it.
Yeah, I've heard of it, and it's actually very interesting. Never used it. I've been using a lot of different CRMs, but I never used that particular one. How would you say it's different, and what kind of an advantage could an entrepreneur find in using that specific tool versus Pipedrive or HubSpot?
Yeah, so the difference is that they with Go High Level, you have the funnel actually involved it. So it's similar. I was in Russell Brunson's mastermind from ClickFunnels back in the day when his very first mastermind that he did. And so I was a ClickFunnels user for a long time, but I ended up moving over to Go High Level because I saw all of the modules that they have in it, right? So instead of going to buy all of these different tools, you can build your funnel and Go High Level. You can have the text automations go out of instead of buying like ManyChat to use on your social media. It's integrated in your Go High Level. Instead of, the CRM is integrated in there, the email is integrated in there. So everything's all together as opposed to using a bunch of different tools.
Got it. No, absolutely. Cool, interesting. So yeah, we were talking about actually tools and automation. So anything like, for example, do you also work with tools like Zapier or N8 and for your clients? Like, what kind of like outcome can they then expect once they work with you?
Yeah, so I'm building some bots now for some clients, and so they're looking at like places that they can put in automations that will save time for them. So using things like Make or like Zapier is I've been using Zapier for a million years. I didn't even think of that one. So yeah, so what we're looking at is like, for example, for one of my clients, they had a customer service person that was spending 2 whole days doing a certain thing in their business, and we're now automating that so they can use that person for something else that needs more of a human element, right? Because it's not to replace humans, it's really to improve the operations within your company, but also to make the experience of your clients better when they work with you.
Yeah, exactly. So, because in the process that you described, there's like many different elements to it. Specifically, then I guess you see your role more as the one of a consultant, I guess, right? And when it comes to the implementation, do you have someone on your team who does that, or do you do more like the recommendation on how to implement things, or do you do the implementation yourself?
So it's a kind of done with you, right? Depending on what it is. So like with the training of their chat GPT and setting up their custom GPTs, we do that together because there's so much that needs to come from the client on that, right? So I'm pulling the information out of my clients and then incorporating that into their chat GPT so that they're getting the best results. I'm also training their salespeople to use that as well. And then in terms of having actual bots and things like that, I have a team that helps me to actually create those things and those processes for people.
Okay, yeah, got it. And do you also work like do you work mainly with entrepreneurs or also with companies to create, say, company-wide processes?
Yeah, mainly
Mainly
entrepreneurs.
entrepreneur.
So they're entrepreneurs, usually 7 or 8 figures that are doing this. But it's funny because I did a training a few months ago for a group of executives in a medical device industry, and they weren't even using this at all. Right. And it's like you're medical device companies that are making millions of dollars and you have no AI stuff in your company. So I find that you think everybody else is using it, but really when I talk to people, they're just using like a pinky finger worth of the AI that they could be using.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of these companies probably, they still use a lot of like Excel or Google Doc or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing is like there's some bigger projects that are, happening that we're looking at. Okay, what are the things that are sucking up your time that are not your zone of genius, right? That it's really sucking not just your time but your energy. And then how can we automate those things? And some of them are kind of complicated, so it's going to take, sometimes it takes a while to figure out, okay, what's the process that I do as a human so I can duplicate it because a lot of times people just are like doing it it's like tying your shoe, right? If I was going to say tell me how to tie my shoe right now, you know how to tie your shoe, but to tell me without looking at your shoe, you
I
would be like,
think about it, actually, it's hard to describe. Yeah.
right. So I mean that's really important crucial part that people miss is like they're like I just want the robots to do it for me, but like we want to optimize the process how you're doing it and get all the secret sauce before you put it into automation.
Okay, so I guess obviously a lot of your help also goes into helping companies or entrepreneurs document their processes. How do you get their buy-in? Because I can imagine it's something quite tedious. And let's say I hire you to make my processes more efficient and save me time. And then all I'm hearing is that I actually have to spend more time into documenting my processes. So how does the process usually go?
Yeah, so I'm not a systems and process person. I'm more of like a business growth person, but you need to have those processes in order to get more leverage and get more growth, right? I'm telling you, this little plod is going to be a lifesaver for you, okay? Because instead of taking more time, right? Then, for example, if you're doing something, you can talk it through and you could be like, okay, I'm doing this thing in my company right now. First I go to this software and you can screen record, right? With Loom or something like that and do it that way and just talk through it versus like taking a whole mile of time out of your day because it's just like the tying the shoe. If you have to think through every step of tying your shoe, it's going to be much slower and harder. But if you're like, okay, I'm going to tie my shoe and I'm going to record myself tying my shoe, you would be able to do it the way you normally do it. And then we could be like, oh, first you take the two laces and you pull them to tighten your shoe to the proper tightness. Then you cross them, right? And then you loop them. But we wouldn't know that if we are trying to talk to it and say, first you do this, first you do that.
Got it. Now, yeah. Stacey, sorry, just quick like time out. We will obviously delete this part. I don't remember. Did you have also a book that you wanted to promote? Because I usually a
Yes.
lot of people that contact me or something.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
great.
okay, perfect. Can you
Hidden
please remind me
profits.
the
Hidden
title?
profits. More clients in cash. Hidden
Hidden Profit.
profits. More clients in cash.
Then we'll continue from there. So, Stacey, well, leveraging your experience, you also wrote a book about that, Hidden Profits, More Clients and Cash. Would you like to tell us more about the book that you wrote, for whom is it, and what triggered you to write it?
Yeah, so Hidden Profits, More Clients and Cash it came from when I was working with Tony Robbins. So Tony Robbins had an event called Business Mastery. He still has it, but it was the very first Business Mastery, and it happened at the very beginning of the recession, the last recession. And so he was there. People were in a very nervous state. Lines of credit had dried up. Clients were bailing left and right on companies. And so people had spent $10,000 to be there, but you could feel like the energy of the event was different. So he had this guy stand up for coaching, and the guy said, "I've tried everything and nothing works." Now, if you're familiar with Tony Robbins, I could not imagine saying that to Tony Robbins, right? And the people in the audience were like, "I can't believe he said that." Tony said, "Well, tell me what you tried." And the guy said, "Oh, I tried this, this, and this." And so Tony said, "Well, that's not everything. You've tried like 3 things." And he said, "Well, you must have tried a lot of times." And the guy said, "Well, I tried like a few times, but then I didn't have the team and the time and the money." And so Tony said, "Well, have you ever seen somebody that's been more successful than you, that's come to this country?" In this case, it was the United States, "with nothing, and they're more successful than you?" And the guy said, "Yeah, you see it all the time, like in Success Magazine, Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes, that you're seeing an immigrant that has no command of the English language. They don't have a line of credit. They don't have a credit card. They don't have, a degree from a university with an old boys club to network with, and they're more successful." So Tony said, "So it's not a lack of resources, because these people had that lack of resources. It was a lack of resourcefulness. So it's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness." So that sentence, I went back to my clients and I was like, how can I help them be more successful with the same resources they have during this recession? And that's where the Hidden Profits was born, because I said, how can I help them make more money without spending more on marketing? So the book has all of these strategies that are either free or low cost, can be implemented immediately to increase their revenue. And because there's no increased cost, it all goes to bottom line profit. And then they can be done in any size company. So that's how the whole thing was born.
Amazing. So it's really about maximizing what you have, because often the idea is like, in order to make more money, you have to spend more money. Whereas the book really tries to help entrepreneurs and companies to understand what they can improve with things that they already have without having to spend more.
Yeah.
I
And
really
so
like the
for example,
concept.
I had one client who he came to me, he had filled out the questionnaire. It's a very detailed questionnaire. And in the questionnaire, he said he had a lot of employees, but they weren't really pulling their weight. And when I read through the questionnaire, I said, "Oh, we're going to have to like clean house and get rid of some of these dead weight." And when I talked to him for his coaching session, he said, "Well, I can't fire anybody because I live in a small town. The recession is happening. These people go to my church. Some of them are my uncles. They're like 80 years old. Some of them are my nephews." And so I said, "Okay, now we have to get creative." And so we brought out one of the hidden profits. And with one question, he increased his sales 48%.
Cool. And would you like to tell us what the tactic was?
Yeah. So it is, do you want fries with that? Right. So the upsell. And so because his employees were not really open to coaching or, doing these long involved things, we were like, okay, what is your most popular product? And this is what the listeners and watchers can do, is like, what is your most popular product, and put an upsell for that product. And so in his case, he was an auto parts store, and his most popular thing was stuff to do an oil change. And so what we did is we asked them, "Hey, have you replaced your air filters lately?" And so by doing that, he increased his sales 48% with one question.
Wow. That sounds really amazing. Cool. I really like this kind of examples, and this kind of like creative way to rethink what you have from a very different angle. Would you like to tell us something of some of the topics that you discussed during the book, so that you can make the audience curious, and then if they want, they
Yes.
can probably find
Yes.
your book. Will have a link for it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, for sure. So like each chapter is a different strategy that you can use in your business. And what I like to say is like, these are business concepts that you may have heard before, but if you're not using it in your business on a regular basis, you're losing money. It's going out the door. So I'll give you another example. There was a gentleman that was a coaching client of mine, and he canceled his coaching call, which people don't usually do, right? Because they've invested a lot of money in coaching. And so he rescheduled, and he said, I had $100,000 sale. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's fantastic news. Like, this is like a happy dance moment, $100,000 sale. And he's like, Stacey, it was not a happy dance moment. I was like, really curious. Like, how can $100,000 sale not be a happy moment, right? Most people would be really happy. And he said, Stacey, this client used to be my client, and they have gone and bought from my competitor for the last 7 years. So dollar mistake. That conversation made me look at like the come on back strategy, which is in the book of how to do it, is how do you reactivate those past clients? Like if he had not waited 7 years, I mean, even if he had waited a year or 2 years, he would have had another $500,000 in his pocket, right? So we look at the processes and systems to actually find these things in your business that are just waiting for you to be like, oh, I need to do that. Just like dentists, they're really good at that, right? Like if you don't come in, they're going to call you, they're going to text you, they're going to send you a postcard. But most other companies that have, in 24 years of coaching and consulting, they're not doing this. So you need to have a system in place, and you need to have like a time frame. So if somebody has not done business with you for, is it a 3-month time frame? It depends on your business. Or is it a 6-month, a year, 2 years? Where is that time frame of the buying cycle that is a good spot to make sure that you reactivate them?
And that actually brings us back to how we started, which is about process automation. So obviously having something automated so that when the time comes, you have reactivation and you don't forget about things. It's really often, I notice, what makes, especially in sales, the difference between more or less money in the bank. Because sometimes you just forget to reach out to someone that might have needed your service, and then the month after you see, well, I do web design, for example, and someone that I helped with a couple of years ago maybe now needed a new website, and then you see that they have asked someone to do it, and they just forgot about you because you were not there.
Right. Right. Yeah. And you have to be top of mind. And so I always say to people, if you do the come on back strategy that's in the book, even if somebody doesn't buy from you right then, you're still getting top of mind awareness with that person. So, like you said, the website is a perfect example because it's not a very small. I mean, obviously, someone's not going to do a new website in 3 months or 6 months. So you want to keep dripping on them so that when they're ready, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm going to go with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Stacey, it's been a brilliant conversation. Thanks a lot for sharing all the things that you shared. What's the best way for people to stay in touch with you and also know more about the things that you do?
Sure. So you can go to my website, which is staceyhylen.com, which I'm sure you'll put the link in. Hylen is help you leverage everything now. That's how it's spelled. So the other thing that I think ties together everything that we talked about today is if you go to moreclientsandcash.com, you're going to get a checklist assessment of where you have hidden profits in your business and how you can activate those. And then it also has a custom GPT that I've developed with the systems from my book that you can plug in your business information and they'll be like, oh, this hidden profit could be good for you. And so I would definitely suggest go to moreclientsandcash.com, opt in there. And then when the book is out, you will get a notice that the book is coming out so you can get your hands on it too.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. There's going to be a link in the show notes to it. Well, Stacey, I want to thank you again for your time. It has been great having you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. I think probably, and